crushed Phil Hellmuth so badly so many times. It's sad, and he's afraid to ever play me again, so that's sad. But he can play sort of the amateur players and have his own, but obviously he can't handle it at the top level. That's why he doesn't turn up to these sort of, the very challenging events. Yeah, I love it. I love to get him mad and really him churning. I'm kind of, winding him up to have a heads up challenge with me and just to prove to the whole world that he's a better player than me.
Hey guys, Connor Richards here with another episode of Life Outside Poker. My guest for this episode is Tony G. Tony G is one of the most recognizable faces and voices in the poker world. You may remember him from his appearances on shows like The Big Game, where he was able to rattle people like Phil Hellmuth. He's also an entrepreneur who founded PokerNews in the early 2000s and went to be involved in a number of other successful business ventures. We also talked about his upbringing in Lithuania that brought him to Australia at a young age, and how this influenced his life and encouraged him to later get involved in European politics. All right, here's that interview. Tony, very honored to have you as a guest right now. Super excited to talk to you about a bunch of different things. You're calling me from Lithuania right now as I'm in Las Vegas, so let's start things off there. What was it like growing up in Lithuania?
Well, yeah, I was born here. It was the Soviet Union. It was interesting, right? It was challenging. We were occupied. We didn't have a lot of rights. We couldn't leave the country without a permit. And people could not probably understand how things were. And it was no elections and Soviet control. You didn't have any rights. The government was everything, and the government was never elected. So it was very special and very challenging.
It sounds like it was very challenging. And of course, these are still issues that are relevant and persist to this day. How much did that experience motivate you to get involved into politics later in your life?
Well, after having success in PokerNews, being the founder of PokerNews and the creator of PokerNews, it kind of gave me a lot of energy, and I felt that I had to give something back to people back at home that kind of supported and worked and built that great company. So that's one of the reasons, and all of the other success that I had in terms of investment and so on. I thought, well, why not put yourself up for elections in the European Parliament and make some good things happen? And in part, I succeeded pretty well, and I had a good time and gave a lot back to society and the people that supported me. So I did my job and I completed my task. I finished politics proudly on my own terms at my own time. I bowed out and did a lot of things that makes me proud even now, like having the biggest conference for in terms of technology, which was called the Switch Conference. I brought in thousands of buses of children, taught them how to code, taught them how to believe in themselves. And our country in Lithuania has progressed tremendously, although I'm both Australian and Lithuanian, but obviously being born here, speaking to you from Kaunas now. So this is my country. Of course, I'm proud to be back, and I'm proud to have built a lot of good things here and having been in politics.
And you mentioned that you did move to Australia and also grew up there. I want to talk about that a bit, but just sticking on Lithuania a bit, I did see an article that Lithuania has the happiest young people of any country in the world. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, well, it's hard. It's hard to say. That's very contagious. You can contend that, right? But we have a lot of great young people here. They're very smart. They're very tech savvy. Well, they built PokerNews in Lithuania, the tech part, and we've had a lot of great other people who've helped over the years and have built with content, with ideas and so on. And we've built a lot of great companies here, like NordVPN, which is the best, probably the biggest VPN provider. We've got another company, Vinted, which is also a very big multi-billion-dollar company, and many other things like Revolut, sort of the most sort of famous fintech bank in Europe is also licensed in Lithuania. And yeah, there's a lot of technology, a lot of innovation, a lot of hunger here, probably being occupied so long, and yet people are so smart and so qualified and so structured in terms of their work ethic that the country had to do well. And although being small and lean and agile, the Lithuania has progressed to be one of the most successful countries in Europe, and beating some of the old stalwarts in terms of gross domestic product per capita. And the growth has been exceptional. So I think we will continue progressing and achieving and creating a good lifestyle for all the people that live here.
Yeah, you mentioned that a lot of the Poker News tech started out there in Lithuania. I can tell you that that persists to this day. A lot of our IT guys are over there in Lithuania, and they're great. And they gave me some interview questions ideas for you. So yeah, shout out to them for sure.
Yeah, I'm proud of all the tech people that helped me to have so much success in life, and it's because of all the great people I've had around me for so many years, and supporting some of the ideas I have. I mean, a lot of them didn't work, but a few did, like the live reporting.
Yeah, that one did work, and I'm certainly grateful for that one since that's a big part of my job.
Great.
And so, yeah, let's talk about I think when you were 11, you moved to Melbourne, Australia. What was it that motivated your family to move? Was it leaving the Soviet Union or just looking for other opportunities?
Yeah, it was a lot of the family kind of went away when the Soviet Union came in, and my mother stayed here. She was under the age, and she didn't have much threat of being deported to Siberia, because they basically would deport everyone else, but kids by themselves, with grandparents, they could get away from being deported. So she stayed, and that's how I was born. And she had her brother, who was older, already over 18, an engineer. So he had to quickly get away because, once the Soviets came in, people would get deported to Siberia, where they would do 15 years just for being who they are. And I've previously been on CNN explaining this to people, and this is difficult to comprehend, especially in America. But yeah, people were discriminated just because they were successful, smart, or well educated, or from a good family. They would get a ticket to Siberia. So we had, based 10% of the population were deported for a lot of years, and most of those people did die in Siberia. So, that was the motivation for most of the family to get away while they could. And then that's what my mother wanted to do. She wanted to meet her brother, who was in Australia, being an engineer, and she went there. And it took a long time for me to join her, but I did join her in Australia, and that's why I probably had some better energy and new knowledge, and different perspective on life in Australia during that time, which gave me a good advantage and a lot of success.
So it sounds like you had a pretty positive experience moving to Australia, adjusted to the culture.
Yeah, I loved it. I mean, I didn't have any difficulties adjusting and kind of fitting in and having a decent childhood and reasonable education and motivation to come back to Lithuania, where we built a lot of our businesses.
So you have a lot of business ventures that we're going to get into in this call. But before we get to that, do you remember what your first job was?
Yeah. Well, first job was in Australia, basically going door to door, asking people if they wanted their lawn mowed or car washed, or something like that. But even before that, in Lithuania, it was like growing tomatoes and selling tomatoes in the market as a young kid. From 7 to 11, we did have to be active and working and doing things there.
It sounds like you've had that entrepreneurial spirit your whole life then.
Yeah, it's for sure. It's part of the DNA.
What lessons did you take from some of those first jobs?
Well, the main lesson, that persistence, right? You can't give up. If you can't get one job, you just got to keep going to the next door, and some luck will come along the way. But you can't be lucky sitting watching or playing games at home, right? You got to get out there, and then you got to work. You got to push. You got to sell. And when you sell, you got to deliver. So that's the key. And you just got to keep progressing in life. But you can't feel sorry for yourself by not having, the capacity or desire to move and to do things.
And speaking of playing games, at what point did poker come into your life? How did that happen?
So that happened in Australia from basically 12 years old. I played with my family in an island called Phillip Island near Melbourne, where, we used to play at night, not much to do. And in Australian summers, where we would spend our weekends and holidays, not far away. We had penguins on the island. It was good, but, you couldn't watch penguins too long. We would play some poker. And that was fun. So we had some poker games, like 7-card stud, 5-card draw. We didn't even have no limit hold'em then, at least in the family. And then in a Crown Casino, we started learning no limit hold'em and other games, and pot limit Omaha, and started learning all the games and playing them just naturally, without too much fuss. Just that was my lifestyle.
What was it about poker that sucked you in and attracted you?
I had some mediocre success. I like to be kind of uh, enthralled, addicted to the game or whatever. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the stimulation and engagement of playing. So that's I really loved the game, and I still love the game. And I travel the world playing poker when I can.
That was actually the next thing I wanted to ask is where in the world have you played poker? I'm guessing everywhere.
Yeah, I just came back from Jeju, but played poker everywhere. I played recently in Japan and in Jeju, Korea. I've played in America, obviously, everywhere. Canada. I can't think a place I haven't played. New Zealand. Yeah, I guess there's still a lot of places I have to go and play poker in, but I've seen a lot of the world playing some poker, one level or another, and I don't care what level it is. So sometimes it's nice just to have a game, even in a pub, as we say, in a bar. In Australia, I might randomly walk in when I'm back and just sit down and play a small $5 event with people, just to have a beer and have a laugh.
Well, that's good to say you still in here play you still enjoy playing at those smaller buy-in levels because you've of course played in a lot of the biggest games in the world. And I wanted to ask, where are those big games at? You hear about the ones in Macau, in Dubai, where are the biggest places you've played?
Well, we can play on a yacht. I had recently, before Russia was still normal, we've had games in Russia, a very long time ago. But mainly it's probably on yachts, or well, even now in Jeju, Korea, right? We had very, very, very big games as well. So games are going on everywhere, and you can't choose a location. It's down to the players who want to play, who have available to play, and we would have a game if the right people are there.
And I'm sure you've played a lot of these big games on yachts and things like that. They're going to be private games. So one of my colleagues wanted me to ask you about game selection advice and uh, putting yourself in a game that you're able to beat or, able to have a good time in.
Yeah, and game selection is the most critical part, and I think that's been part of my life success, because probably I'm not the best player. You got to be honest, right? So understanding that you're not the best player, not wanting to be the best player, but being a character, being a joker, and trying to get in a contest that you're competitive or you have an advantage, will keep you not from being broke and progressing in life, right? So sometimes it's good to sit out and wait for the right opportunity than to just push yourself. But look, there's a lot of very smart people now in poker, much smarter than me. And it's great to have them around, but there's no reason to play with them. So you might as well play with business people, with people who've succeeded in life, and kind of separate just from pure poker players. And I feel I am one of those people. I'm not just a pure poker player that only does poker or gambling or just taking an advantage for a living from people who are not as smart as you in that particular one field, right? So it's just important to be more balanced in terms of your life and what you do and your achievements, and then hang around with those people and play poker with them. And hopefully it's much easier to beat them than to beat the super pros that are around nowadays.
Yeah, I would think it would be. And when you're playing in these private games, what are some safety tips, both, physical safety and avoiding being cheated or taken advantage of?
Yeah, unfortunately, cheating has become huge. I've never had it in my time, but right now you just got to be super careful with the people you associate yourself with. There's so many ways they can cheat you, and they can take a lot of money and cause a lot of stress. So just avoid people you really don't trust, and even if you trust, triple check things. Make sure your cards are protected. Even the way the dealer deals the cards, make sure the dealer deals the cards down properly, that they're not exposed in any way, and people are not knowing what you have. So there's so many ways of doing it that it's pretty sad, the way poker has gone. And I just wish everyone to be safe, but also avoid people, of bad character, substance, to be associated and playing with them, because probably if they're not doing any business and they're just playing poker for a living or gambling, then they're probably going to take your money, because that's the only way they can make money. So just stay away. But I think a lot of nice home games are there around, and people are comfortable and happy, and things will keep going. Poker's great, but yeah, you have to be smart.
Are you worried that technology has advanced so much to the point where, it might become impossible to, ensure that you're not being cheated in a game?
Well, it depends who's associated. You have to really trust the people you're dealing with. But yeah, it is true. I mean, if they really want to cheat you, there's a lot of tools available that they can partake in to cheat. So it's there. It's prevalent. It's everywhere. So you have to be smart and just ensure it's not happening. But it's probably happened a lot of times, and it's pretty sad to see, but it's happening. It's in every way.
And for a long time, poker has kind of been stigmatized and associated with gambling and taking risk. But you've been a big advocate for poker. I think you've even said that it should be taught to kids in schools, can help them learn things like risk management. Yeah, do you think poker should be taught in schools?
Yeah, I think poker is a great game to be taught in schools alongside chess. I think poker is great because you do have to manage stuff. You have to think about things, and we see kids playing video games too much, and I think poker's great. I mean, at least that made me as a person in life. So I think it can make other people. And the earlier they understand gambling, risks of gambling, investment, and you can see how many poker players go on to be hedge fund managers and creating their own funds and having so much success, as long as they have the right team alongside them. They can be. There's a lot of success there in that area, and I'm hearing a lot of great stories. So I think that's very, very important for poker to be understood for what it is. It's not a game of chance; it's a game of skill. That's very clear. We can prove it beyond reasonable doubt, and it would be great for kids to play and spend time with their family playing poker instead of just being on the phone, wasting time kicking goals into something that doesn't really exist.
Yeah, I think that's a very positive way of looking at the game. So let's go ahead and talk about you founding Poker News. If what I've looked at, on the internet is correct, it looks like you bought the domain back in 2002 for just a couple $1,000s. You hired some programmers, and the rest is kind of history. Poker News grew into the biggest name in poker media. It's still around today, live reporting the biggest events around the world. What was your motivation there?
Yeah, so I was playing poker, and I kind of bought PokerNews.info first. I thought, we would build an affiliate site to bring in some affiliate revenue from Party Poker, which was started kind of doing well before we had things like Paradise Poker and other poker sites. But Party Poker was kind of exploding in the early 2000s, and I thought, well, make some content and drive traffic and get affiliates, and that's what I did. And then I thought, well, after PokerNews.info, I thought, well, maybe PokerNews.com is available, and I bought that for $8,000. Maybe PokerNews.info cost like nothing. It was like free. You could get these domains free, and then we diverted traffic to PokerNews.com, and hired developers in Lithuania. And then early Card Player was having the rights for WSOP. So I went to WSOP and said, how about I pay you guys $300,000 and you give me the rights and we'll cover the World Series. And that was, wow, that was big, right? And so we outbid them and we got the rights, and PokerNews has kept the rights to WSOP for all these years. I guess it's 20 years now it's going to come to. So we built technology about live reporting, making poker interesting. You could update your own chip stacks. And it was, it's benefit of all the people that were working. I had some ideas, some creation, but it was all the smart people around me, and the great people like John Caldwell, who was the chief editor then, who came into Poker News. He was from the US, from Los Angeles, and that was important, right? To bring people from all over the world, and then to create languages. My idea was to do subdomains. It wasn't just to do English. We had Japanese Poker News, Korean Poker News. We had, Russian Poker News, Dutch Poker News. When Noah Boken helped me so much, with other ideas and other perspective on things. So we had huge amount of communities all over the world in different languages because we had subdomains, and I'd give these people like 50% of the revenue to run it. So I'd centralize and focus with the owners, like Isai Scheinberg from PokerStars, and other people, like Vivikran from Party Poker, and all the owners and creators of these sites. And then I'd make the best deals so all of our sub-affiliates could also earn money. So even if we had a huge amount of revenue, we'd share this revenue with our co-creators, with our content writers, with our sub-affiliate subdomains of different languages. We'd have 30 languages on poker all around the world, and we'd share all this revenue. Most of that revenue went to all the people. I get a fraction of it, but it was enough to have a great life.
And how long did it take for Poker News to really get going? If this was back in 2002, that's pre-moneymaker boom, barely, and then poker really starts taking off. Did you see Poker News pick up traction with the poker boom?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, by probably 2006, we were already doing $2 million in revenue a month. And I wouldn't start with Poker News. We did Poker Affiliate World. We had a great relationship with Full Tilt Poker and every other poker side that would come along. We'd drive and help traffic and do sub-affiliates, bring in a lot of, I meet so many people that are brought in as affiliates where we train them how to, do business and create content and then drive traffic and then make money from those players that play. So, yeah, we were definitely there early, and we did a lot of great work, creating a lot of content, a lot of traffic, and that was alive. So I'm glad that I wasn't just a poker player, that I could create some things around the area that I loved that are still going now.
And looking back at that and kind of how big Poker News has gotten, do you see this kind of as your first big break, I guess, so to speak, in the business world?
Yeah, that was my first big break. So for sure. First big break, just a simple poker guy that, that wasn't a great, GTO type of player, just a hobby player that made it, in life. So, thank you for everybody that contributed to that. But for sure, that was my big break and the biggest break. And after that, yeah, the things kind of progressed and snowballed into more interesting things.
Yeah, well, I personally have you to thank because I work for Poker News. I've been here for 2 years. I've gotten to travel the world and see the world and cover poker tournaments and talk to interesting people like you. So great that tradition is still being kept alive. Poker's grown a lot in the 20 or so years since you founded Poker News. There's a lot more poker media today. It's a much more competitive space. Where do you see poker media going, or what opportunities do you think they are?
Yeah, well, still very important, and things that you do to diversify into the online casino, sports betting, and so on. It's similar, but poker's poker, and poker's pure. So I think, yeah, the game has to evolve. Obviously, the players get better, but I think for smaller level buy-in tournaments, make it mass market, make inclusive, give everybody a chance, engagement, entertainment, meeting people, traveling the world. That's what poker's about. It's a lifestyle, So that's what I always promoted, not for the pros, but for just the normal people who just want to have a good time, without having stress of playing for high stakes or huge stakes, not losing a house. But, when you win a big tournament, you win a new house. So that's what poker should be about.
And most people in the poker world, myself included, they best know you from your appearances on shows like The Big Game, where you were the star of the show. You put people like Phil Hellmuth on tilt.
Ridiculous.
What's ridiculous?
I mean, just make a decision. Like there's other people in the game too. You're a professional player playing against a loose cannon. I mean,
now I'm trying to make a decision for 43,000. Can you just shut the up?
Still to this day, those remain, some of the most entertaining poker clips. There's a few specific ones I want to ask you about, but first I just wanted to talk about the, I guess, kind of character that you play up when you're on these shows. I think that you've said when you're in private games, you're not mouthing off in the same way that you do when you're playing against the pros on TV.
Yeah, especially at that time, it was just, having a lot of fun and having a lot of energy, not having a care in the world about any consequences, right? So it's different. And I kind of wanted to make that content, but it was natural, I wasn't forcing it. And, now playing in private games, there's no need for it. And also over 50 years old. So being younger, brash and excited, it was different. That was the time, we've made those sort of video clips. And even recently, with the Trident games, my worst or best has come out, hidden far behind many skins. But yeah, it was just my personality on a poker table, but it's not like personal. I hope Phil, obviously I crushed Phil Hellmuth so badly so many times. It's sad, and he's afraid to ever play me again, so that's sad. But he can play sort of the amateur players and have his own, but obviously he can't handle it at the top level. That's why he doesn't turn up to these sort of, the very challenging events.
And, it's all on TV. People watching are probably, wondering what's real and what's not. Can you confirm that when you're getting into it with Phil and he's steaming, that he's actually mad and he's that's real?
I love it. I love to get him mad and really him churning. But like personally, he's a good person. He's a good family guy. He's a great. There's no hate, but I'm kind of winding him up to have a heads up challenge with me and to prove to the whole world that he's a better player than me, because in all the TV we've done together, he's just failed to beat me. So I just want to see if he can beat me one day.
Well, Phil, if you're listening to this, there is a heads up challenge for you. So you might have to take Tony up on that.
Yeah, and a lot of money. We can play for a lot. He's got a lot of backers, and that would be fun to take him on. I'm ready.
I think the whole poker world is ready. I think everyone would want to see that.
Yeah, and that's been that's another message to send to him. I think it's time. It's time to really play. Time to perform.
So do you watch a lot of televised poker streams? You played on the $1 Million Cash Game and things like that. Do you keep up with poker content today?
I don't really watch enough. I mean, a bit here and there, but I'm not a big watcher of it. I'm a creator of poker content, right? So I think I'm going to do another $1 Million Cash Game soon and do some other tournaments. I play the Trident Cash Games, or if there's any big cash games around the world that are televised, I'm happy to play and have a bit of fun. But I'm not, I'm not a fan of anyone. I'm the most interesting person to watch. Just joking.
I think you may be. And like I mentioned, there are a few specific hands that I wanted to ask you about from TV. I'll limit it to just two and then maybe ask you about your favorite ones that you remember. But my personal favorite poker clip of all time is you against Ralph Perry, where you got him to move all in and then you told him that you were sending him back to Russia and on his bike. So many memorable lines from that. What's your memory of that clip?
Yeah, I had ace deuce against King Jack, and I said you should never overplay King Jack. He overplayed King Jack, but it's probably not the worst play by him. But it was like, look, I promoted it as pretty poor effort, and I said he was drawing semi dead on the flop. I remember that was great hand, right? It's great to win those hands and great to make those calls when someone, probably a wrong call anyway once you moved in. But now if you think about it mathematically, but, probably everything is wrong and everything is right. And in history, I crushed him and he retired from, tournaments after that tournament, basically. That was the end of his career. He was biked.
It looks like his son is pretty active in the poker world. Sean Perry, not as much poker today as sports betting. Have you kept up with that?
Yeah. We've played with him in actually on a yacht, and I've seen him around. I've seen him around Dubai. He's a nice kid, actually. He's a nice kid, and interesting person. Very special. And I wish him all the best of luck. But yeah, in poker, he's not as good as his dad so far. Perhaps he needs some more time, but he's been getting crushed in the games I've played with. But I think he's doing well in sports betting.
Did he have anything to say about your previous interactions with his dad?
No, he's fine, and there's never anything held based on a few hands that we've had with his dad, and I have no bad feelings against his dad. I'm happy I ended his career, and he's probably had a successful business life after that. So I'm not. There's nothing bad there. But his son is a nice kid, and I wish him all the best. He seems to be a very sharp sports gambler, full-on professional, and crushing some people, I guess, who take his bets.
So the other televised big moment for you that I wanted to ask about, and it's with somebody who you've probably played with a lot more over the years. It's when Andrew Robl was sitting next to you. He was on your right, and he was in the tank, and you were not happy with it. And you said that you didn't want to play with these online players who were just going to waste your time.
I want to call the clock. I want to call the clock. Come on the internet you play like in 1 second. And when you come here now, you come to my game and you're wasting my time.
Yeah. What was that moment like for you?
Yeah, but Robl's kind of held on, and he made the right decision by folding and doing everything right, and he's made a great career, right, running the biggest game in the world, and being in charge of that game, JBR game or whatever, the Robles game. So he's been incredibly successful in that sense. He held his line, and good luck to him for sure. So. But it was kind of fun to put the pressure. But he's a different level. He's already a GTO top pro, in the world of poker. So he's already a different kind of player than those old-fashioned players. He's the best of the best poker players in the world. So for sure, that's good luck to him that he can have that juicy game and make so much money from playing poker. He's super smart.
It is interesting, though, that you were frustrated with the younger generation of players taking their time and, not being willing to gamble, because really that is the direction that the game went. And it's more so the case now. I think a lot of people who watch poker content, they want there to be more characters like you. What are your thoughts on kind of the way that poker's gone in that regard?
Yeah, and I guess Robl was the first of those sort of GTO guys who, take the time, they make it upset, they make it tilted. And they take all your money at the end of the day, right? And they control the games that they run and manage. But it is what it is. These guys that take a lot of your time in tournaments, and it's so boring, and that's what stops me from playing with them and stops me from playing these tournaments, when they take so much of your time, and they make it so painful to be around the table with them. They're not having much fun. They're just there to take your money. So I don't like it, for sure. I don't like it. So that's why I need game selection to weed these sort of people out.
Yeah, you were really the voice of the audience in that situation. Although Andrew Robl is great, he's also a very fun player to watch. And like you mentioned, he's stuck around. I said, yeah,
changed his ways, significantly from those days. But yeah, he made it. You got to give him credit, because he made it from being a top pro to a very successful manager of poker.
And like you mentioned, he plays in a lot of these private games. So I don't know, he must be a pretty likable guy, or he must do something right to get invited to these games.
Yeah, he's got it worked out for sure. He's I guess he's the manager of these games, and it's pretty amazing. So yeah, you got to hand it to him for sure. He's probably made hundreds of millions of dollars from running this game. So it's pretty amazing, right? That he was the pro that I could do it and handle it and stay in there and manage this game, right? Robl's game.
So those were my two favorite televised hands that I wanted to ask you about. But how about you? What are your favorite, high stakes poker, big game moments that you remember over the years?
Like winning the biggest game, like the hand online was big, like 7 million.
That was recently, right?
A few years ago, maybe 2 years ago. It was that was on coin poker. So like in crypto, winning 7.7 million in PLO, that was pretty crazy. Pretty lucky and fortunate. And then winning a $5 million pot in Russia 15 years ago was big and important, like life important. And a lot of $1 billion pots that have gone by. But yeah, you win, you lose, and I'm just having fun.
So you mentioned that $7 million pot. That's a big one. That was the biggest pot on record. Is that right? Biggest online pot?
Yeah, biggest online pot. Yeah, 7.7 million. That was the biggest online pot in PLO. So that was fun. I tell you, I still remember it. So
what's the hand history on that one?
So I had like a straight. I think I had aces or whatever. I had ace jack something against. I had a straight, not straight, that I just called the flop, and I called with the nuts on the flop pot, and I called pot on the turn. I went all in, and the hand held up against maybe a flush draw and two pair or something like that. It was close. It was a very close hand, but after playing for many hours, I kind of play less, but I still play online. I still play these tournaments and play a bit of cash every now and again. But I'm a fish nowadays online for sure.
And so we talked about Andrew Robl, Phil Hellmuth. You played with a lot of big names and probably, got to know them kind of on a personal level, maybe develop some friendships or rivalries. Who are some of the other players who you played with who you think back and were like, wow, that was cool?
Yeah, well, like Devilfish, but Mike Mattisau, Gus Hansen, they were very cool players. There's so many of them around, especially now, that they didn't get an opportunity. But yeah, the Devilfish was an interesting player from the UK, aggressive and brash, and he's passed away unfortunately. But yeah, Gus Hansen was also a very cool guy that gave a lot of action and had a lot of success. It would be nice to have him back. So I think a lot of those old timers hopefully will have the seniors poker tour soon. That'll be fun.
Yeah, I hope it would be nice to see Gus back. He might be doing some more. He was at the WPT World Championship. I spoke to him a bit there. He was playing in a low stakes cash game with some fans. So hopefully we see him out in the felt more.
Yeah, he'd be fun. He'd be great to have back. And yeah, so many of those old timers. But Gus was all action and was excitement.
Do you have any time to just quickly talk about your venture into European politics?
Yeah, okay, yeah. So, being successful and making plenty of money, I felt that going into politics would make some sense, and it was good. I had a 5-year term, no scandals, in well and out well, and I kind of worked on tech and on blockchain. Obviously, that progressed me into cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, and so on. And I actually recommended in the European Parliament to buy all of those members of Parliament some Bitcoin, and when it was 1K, so they would have done pretty well these days, right? But yeah, I was kind of doing my own thing there. It was pretty independent. I didn't belong to anyone. Had a good run in the European Parliament, but also had certain criteria. I probably couldn't progress and couldn't change the people because people have to change themselves. But I kind of gave education in terms of technology, in terms of financial services, and things in Europe that we've achieved. So there was a lot of positive things left from it, and I'm happy to be done with it and enjoying my life now and doing other things that I love doing, including growing up my kids, which I have 6 of.
And in U.S. politics, and I imagine worldwide politics, there's been a lot of polarization in the last 8 years or so, 10 years. How do you think we move past that, and how do you think we get people to work together and not be so polarized?
Well, politicians move on and people stay. So, whoever's there, Trump, whatever, I think people shouldn't be so afraid or worried about, because I think it's, they're here for a short time. But the country, America, will stay, and, the politicians will move on and disappear, and no one will remember them, probably. They will not have as much influence as people think. So I think have less fear, less anxiety about it, and just do what you can to make your country great, right? Not that someone's going to make a country great. We have to make our country great. We have to ask, what have we done about making it great?
Thank you so much, Tony. I really enjoyed talking to you and appreciate your time.